we'll call the budget workshop to order then. And who do we want to start out? Maggie, are you going to start out, or do you want Rick?
I probably will, but I don't have much of a voice.
Yeah, I can kind of go over what I have. So me and Rick, you can jump in at any time. So we've been working together on the budget. If you look at your memo from Rick. Hold on. Well, you guys all have the packet. Inside it has, you'll find the general fund revenue, and then you'll find general fund expenses.
And we're looking at draft 3, correct?
Draft 3. So this is the final budget that Rick kind of put together after we had a discussion this afternoon.
Okay.
So the budget places a priority on addressing some of the issues or concerns. One of them is possibly increasing staff capacity. Next year we kind of looked at hiring a full-time administrative clerk if we feel that that's necessary. So that is in the budget. That can be something that can be kind of discussed between now and the end of the year. We do have a temporary administrative clerk in. He started this week. He does know that it's temporary, and he's actually going to be going back to school in the spring. So, yeah, it's been working out really well so far. And then we also have we have been kind of doing some increased planning and zoning. That we have added a revenue item in though as well to kind of recoup some of those costs for zoning permits, such as like fencing, like a survey kind of review of where a fence will be put, and then also we also added a drainage inspection fee for the engineer to kind of recoup some of those costs that we've been having over the years. And then some other with that, if you look under the administrative kind of the salaries and wages, you will see an increase for that because of the proposed administrative clerk. I know originally Rick had proposed to split my salary between 50% of the general budget and then 50% water and sewer. I kind of advised against that, just keeping mine in the general fund, just because I think your current rates or the current rates for the city are based on a study that was done without my salary in there, and I think there's already when we do have a discussion on the budget for water and sewer, I don't know if that is something we want to add in there, since I think there might be a discussion already on increasing rates. And I'll kind of get to a little more onto that as well, because if you keep it in the general fund, as I'll explain later, with the increase, we do have the property tax base in the community as instead of increasing the tax amounts for each property and based on so the community has increased by 12%. Our proposal is right now is at 10.8% increase, and because of the increase in housing and improvements in the community, likely a lot of properties won't see a tax increase on their bill because because our tax capacity has increased. So I guess by keeping it in the general fund, my salary in the general fund, we wouldn't be looking at I just would rather it stay there and not see an effect on taxes then possibly see an effect in the sewer and water rates. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, yep.
Okay. Some other increases you'll see, is we do have a comprehensive plan that's mandated by the Met Council. Some of those, we did receive a grant to cover some of those fees. I think it was $16,000, but some of those costs, I think it's $33,000, will also be has been added to the budget for engineering for their work on the water and sewer and I think stormwater sections of the comprehensive plan. So that's something we do have to kind of budget for because it's to get that document completed. One thing I did forget to talk to Rick about, and we can talk about it a little bit more. It does. I did have a decrease in the police contract because I think last year you guys discussed adding some time, and that didn't happen, and so we can decrease that amount. I think right now Rick has it at $123,000. I think the contract is actually like $89,000, so we can probably reduce that amount, and we can show that at Monday's meeting. Let's see.
I should maybe comment on that. The reason I left it, actually increased it, was, albeit I didn't, as I've indicated early on, that I've always felt there are some staffing shortages in the organization, and that additional dollars in the county contract had to do with a CSO, if I remember correctly, and that would be an appropriate spot for staffing to deal with nuisances. Nuisances are actually addressed under state statute as a police power, so that's where I kind of addressed that issue. But again, that's probably cheaper than having John Anderson do it, and John may not want to deal with nuisances.
The problem is that the sheriff's office won't address things like building code violations or, anything else.
No, that's not what just suggested here.
Okay.
What I'm getting at is, if the city of Mayor doesn't have a police department under state law, law enforcement has to deal with it. We're not talking building code, we're not talking zoning ordinance, we're not talking heating and plumbing permits.
Oh, no, obviously, but I'm just like, I got you. That's,
Yeah.
So our CSOs are only gonna enforce watering bans and maybe deal with animal calls in the city.
That's what your understanding is.
Is that what's your understanding?
Well, it would be the whole area of nuisances.
Okay, yeah, I mean, they can.
Weeds, grass, actually as much to do
I don't know
with
if they do
public
parking.
public health issues.
I don't think the sheriff's office is gonna get into dealing with weeds and grass either.
They will either.
No.
They usually just do like.
They might take care of light in the yard.
Yeah, or blowing the clippings into the street, that's the
Yeah.
only thing that they really have to do.
Not sure if they can do that, but
Yeah.
Maybe if they're driving by and seeing it happen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, some of the other areas would be.
I don't think a lot of people realize
it's
it's not supposed to do.
It's a matter of how you enforce these things. There may be other means, but then I would suggest we can make that change here. But then I would probably think in terms of having a further discussion on, code enforcement services beyond the state building code and that. Because there are other cities that have that.
Oh, there's other cities that CSOs do more of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's get that discussion with the sheriff's office, see if people do it.
Yeah, but you don't even, if they don't do it, so be it, but then you may have to recruit
So, let me see if I'm understanding it correctly. You put an increase in there with the thought that we should probably engage a CSO for some of the issues. But what about the town cop that we already have? Because he can take care of all those issues, including the weeds and...
I know he does the grass.
Does it?
Yeah, if they're blowing it, but I know he's talking about.
He would
And
be
the
able to
parking.
do anything then.
Oh, yeah.
Just don't
When we
understand.
brought this increase was because we wanted additional evening and night.
We thought about...
And do a part-time and possibly doing it with Watertown, but then, Cheetah, I don't know what her, she said that she didn't think she could get us anyone till July of this year, but then it was just kinda getting too late in the game. That's my understanding why we had it more than the 89 that it was, because we still feel like we don't want just the county car at night.
Well, and it was my understanding also that Watertown decided not to.
Yeah, that was it.
So then that was our other half, that's who we were gonna partner with,
Right.
to share it, and they decided
I don't think
not
we've
to.
talked about what next year, is there a possibility, but
Well, I was hoping to have a meeting with Gary last week, and I guess he's still flagging out. So, I wanted to get a better sense of what the contract entails. I mean, I've read the contract, but what were the prospects of them helping out with some needs and things like that?
Gee, to get into that too. When is that contract due?
Oh, yeah, the police, yeah, because they do a yearly renewal. I think that'll go on the next council for Monday. We want to, I think we have time, because it doesn't start till January, but I think at least getting that 89 was what they, budgeted for next year. So that's kind of, I mean, what...
It's area cut.
Right.
It's not the cut.
Okay, so instead of jumping around, can we just go
Yeah.
through?
Mhm.
I think we should just go through it, why don't you go through it?
And,
See the changes from last year, see how this lines up with the tax rates from last year,
yep.
on what they were and some of those.
Yeah. So, in the first section, in the revenue, you see the general property tax. That's the levy that is, that you put towards the properties. So that'll be the amount that we levy for the general fund. Other areas of revenue for the city is state grants and aid. Last year, we got $16,000 from for the comprehensive plan. This year, we reduced it to $10,000, because we didn't foresee, obviously, getting that grant again. Local government aid is up about $15,000, from last year. That's the certified amount for this year.
So that's the whole amount?
Yeah. Mhm. Liquor licensing, is up. I mean, not up, it's the same. And then other licenses, those are like dog licenses and, I think that's just dog license. Hold on, I have another sheet that, but just based on historical data, we upped that a little bit. And then building permits, that's the one that we have to kind of look at. I was going to talk to Rick about. I have it at, I kind of suggested more 75, but we can keep it. I mean, based on historical data, we do have a lot of permits coming in. I think last year and the year before that, we had a kind of a revenue of like 120, 140. But like I get a little cautious, like relying just on building permits. So I mean, that's something I can talk to Rick about if
Yeah, just in 2016, it was 145,000.
Yep.
And to date, this year is 110,000.
Yeah. I mean, we can keep it. I just, you never know what'll happen, so,
I think we so low.
Other years,
Well, we
yeah.
were,
I understand being conservative.
Probably conservative, yeah.
We have all those new developments, so that's like another 76 homes, and then the
yeah, but
26 in
still,
that cold water.
2017 should have had some more.
Yeah, I just would say, it's something that we should keep an eye on in the future. We shouldn't always, I mean, we can go off the historical data this time, but then keep a close eye on it for the next years, because we just want to make sure we're...
And we think 100,000 is conservative right now, correct? Is that right, Rick?
I do.
100,000 seems conservative.
Yeah, you gotta remember, if the revenue goes down, your expenses will go down. And there's, obviously, the building official makes money off of this, but it's not dollar for dollar. So, let's say 20,000 dropped off here. You'd see on the expense side, it would go from 40 to maybe 30 or something like that. I was tempted to maybe look at a little bit more, but I understand the philosophy of budgeting revenues. You want to be conservative, expenses liberal. But if things go to hell, that's why you have reserves to kind of ride those changes out. And my thinking is if the housing market goes that bad, probably got more issues to worry about than just the building permit fees.
So how does being a little bit more conservative with the LGA affect the budget side of it? Because historically, we don't allow for the entire amount of revenue, just in case something happens.
I thought we did the last 2 years.
I think we did too.
Yeah, the last 2 years,
The
but
last 2
before,
I don't know
that
about
was
last
where...
2 years, but last year I think we did.
Well,
So this is exactly what we got this year, 298,717.
yeah, it's budgeted anyway, and I think we've just gotten the first half.
Piece of my puzzle here.
How's the state budget doing? I think they're,
State budget's in
they're,
pretty good shape, actually. There was,
and
legislature passed an increase.
Certified, yeah, but see, then you're never assured of anything with LGA,
for
so
sure, I couldn't get caught.
that's why we used to be real conservative, but then last year, and the year before, we were trying to clean out the numbers and keep the taxes from going up, so then we started to account for more, yeah.
I think,
let's start earmarking items where we think if we need to come back to.
Okay. Did anybody find that calculator thing?
I don't know, we'll find out when
All
we
right.
get to it, calculate out the tax rate.
Oh, I have that. I just,
That's fine.
mine's just a little different. Okay, so then there's zoning permits, that'll be a new fee in 2018, just to recover some of the costs for, John reviewing, the city planner reviewing some, kind of zoning, setbacks, and it is possible in the future that I could take that on again. I think it's just been, during the interim, he had taken that on, so, I think once I work with him a little bit more, I could always kind of take that back on. I think Luann did that in the past.
It was my understanding that when he was used for things that people needed, such as setbacks, things like that, where he had to advise, those people got charged individually, hour for hour, what he charged.
I don't know what
At
they
least
done
that's
in the
what
past.
she did when we
Could be.
did something with our,
Okay. It is possible. Maybe she just didn't put it in there.
so does this gets okay,
Yeah, so it's just kind of
Never mind.
like,
I'm screwed up, never mind, doesn't matter.
okay.
Permit
This
has
is the
been in
revenue, right?
place, but
This
there's
is revenue,
a fee
yeah.
associated with it.
But the fee is coming on the other end.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
It's a was always a zoning permit issued, but it's been gratis from what I can tell.
Okay.
And then, site drainage inspection fee. Rick, was that the amount that Dave gave you for?
I had Dave Martini advised me that last year they provided about $5,500 of service, and that probably was never recouped by the city. So, being it's the first time, pretty much that would be any of your building permits that have infrastructure, things of that nature. That's whenever somebody like Dave should go out and look at the grading plan and see if it's in compliance. Here again, the practice maybe of just having the contractor bring in a shop drawing of the grading plan and throwing it in the file is probably not the way to ensure that you're not going to have stormwater issues over town. And Dave did recommend, and I backed him on forcing some people to do it the right way. Normally what happens here is the last party to develop is the one that ends up with all the water in their property unless you don't inspect the grading to make sure it complies with the plan. So it's kind of a prevention against catastrophe.
Okay, so, and then, moving along, police state aid up to $6,000, and, that looks like it was changed based on historical data. County grants, the county grants is like a solid waste grant that we receive from the county for a compost site. So that'll be about the same. And then, state reimbursement for snow removal, the city receives, from the state, snow removal funds for snow plowing, Highway 25.
Why is that going down this time?
Historical data. We haven't had as much snow the last couple of years, so they haven't reimbursed as much. But that's 100% reimbursement, correct? So whatever it costs us. For what?
For loading the snow.
Okay.
Not for hauling it, necessarily hauling it, but for loading the snow. So we get
Like to get rid of the snow?
Yeah, so there's not piles on highway.
So we're still paying to plow, or clean up the sidewalk,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
just the loading of it? Because they plow 25 technically, right?
What's that?
They plow 25 technically.
Yeah, if they don't, it doesn't get done till then, so.
No.
Well,
All right.
they're talking it could be a big lot of snow this year.
They said that last year.
No, I'm just laughing because I'm like, nobody knows.
So, compost collection charges, we get that's a revenue we receive from the city of New Germany for the use of the compost site for brush. Community center rental, we have $33,000. I believe part of that is, increased substantially from the previous years because of the contract with Kids Company.
That's like $30,000.
Yeah.
I think it's like $2,600 a month.
I was looking at that, I'm like, really? I'm like, oh, that's Kids Company.
No, I mean, it's a great thing for the
Oh, it
community.
is, absolutely, everybody loves it, it's fantastic.
Court fines, revenues from tickets, that's what that comes from. Interest earnings, that's the same for interest earning on investments. Charitable giving, that's the revenue from the baseball club that the city receives. They received $2,000 this year. antenna rent, that's for the,
Well, that's all right.
Oh, do you
That's
wanna?
wrong, but it's close, it's close.
Oh, do you wanna change it?
Charitable gambling, is that more? Or-
Yeah, over, usually around 3,300. I mean, it's only $1,000 off, but it's not too.
For the charitable gambling?
The 10%, yeah. Typically, it's over $3,000, but, and it definitely will be this year.
Okay.
Hmm.
So the tower antenna rent, that's the rent that we receive for renting off the, I believe, the water tower?
Why is that going down?
I was wondering that.
I actually have it as the same, so I don't know.
If anything, it might go up if they're talking about adding more.
Yeah, 'cause it's not like a decreasing amount, is it, over a period of time?
The contract a couple months ago about adding more.
So it's most likely
I
going to
don't know if
increase?
that's just from the water tower, or if that's from this,
I think this is for the water tower.
It's just for the one, right? The other one, well,
the two antennas, but I'm not sure.
So we could probably change that one, Rick? Do you think?
That one might be this one, and then
Yeah.
they can get reimbursed from, that one goes straight to the water fund, I believe.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah,
okay.
I
The
think
$15,000 is for this one?
it still should be a revenue.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's true, that should still be there. I don't know if
Um,
it's a revenue of water, no, I don't know.
Gotcha.
That's where it should be.
That's, yeah, I would think that would, that's where.
Let's see which tower it's for.
That makes sense.
If you wanna go back to the charitable gambling in 2016, that was 5,000, so if you wanna give some thought to increasing that, that would be appropriate.
It's not gonna make that big of a difference,
No,
but I do know it's a higher number than just the straight two. Yeah, I do, you'd think you're right, it's typically about $5,000.
So this is the one part where I think Rick might have to explain, 'cause I have a little bit different than him, the specials assessments and the transfers in. We do have the same for the fire contract and the fire truck fund, but, or no, a little different. So I'm gonna have Rick explain
yeah,
that.
special assessments really relate to, another form of revenue that pays off, some of the general fund debt. If you look, under the expenses, well, let me take that back. Shows that one of your bonds is supported by, it's the bond that relates to, there was multiple activities or projects. The, fire truck and the Highway 25 roundabout. And so basically, the gross payments for those are shown under the debt, but to account for the revenue coming in, you do wanna, show the assessments that are coming along, right along with the property tax on the first page, to make sure you can meet that obligation, or you're accounting for it. So, that's right off the debt schedule. 53,919.
So it's not included in the $547,000 on the general property taxes?
Yeah, it is.
Well, then why is it in here then, too?
No, not the assessments, the tax. It's not included in.
Okay,
Assessments are, I don't view them as taxes, they're assessments.
okay.
So, that assessment plus 40-some thousand of the debt service tax levy is needed to pay off the general fund share of that multi-purpose bond. That was sold in 2015.
So you just broke up 53,919 out of what it would have been if it would have all been bucketed into the general property tax? Is that how I understand
Well,
it?
it's just, your property tax is always gonna be one of your last entries. That's your plug figure. So, to pay the bonds shown in the expense side of the document, you have to make sure you're accounting for all of the revenue that comes in. And that particular bond has both a property tax and special assessment support to it.
So the property tax on the first page, the first line here, does not include the special assessment? Okay.
48,308, about 40,000 of it is attributed to that bond sold in 2015, and about 8,300 is associated with fire hall lease purchase. That's only got a year or so left on it.
Yeah,
And
I'm not as confused as I want to make sure that we're all asking the same question. We're just trying to make sure, at least I am, that it isn't added in our revenue here and here.
right.
And Rick is saying, no, it's not.
And last year for 2017, it would have been. Is that correct? Or, for this year?
I don't think we've ever seen it broken out.
I don't know if it was broken out. It probably
So
came
likely,
in, went out to the debt service fund. That's why, first of all, it's kind of a challenge to come in and grasp the city's budget practices and so forth with not having spent a lot of time with it. So, I'm confident in the numbers, but they wouldn't. Your final document may show more of those transfers here and there. They're all accounted for here. The auditor's probably gonna set them up differently in the audit too, but Tice's comment is appropriate. You probably didn't see some of this in a more formal budget document. In fact, if you look at this, there's a whole section on debt service transfers and that can get real confusing, so.
Yeah, and
so what were your thoughts on that, Maggie?
That special assessment plus the tax levy of about 40,000 pays off the fire truck and the roundabout debt service.
yeah, and you wanted to know what I thought? Okay. Yeah, I just did it a little differently, and I think it's just a difference in budgeting. So I don't have the special assessments in as a revenue, and then I also have a less amount for transfers in for the comp, just for comp plan. But it's just, I think it depends on how you want to do it. Yeah, I think it's just a difference in budgeting
So
style.
you didn't have it, where was it then? Where is it?
I
Not accounted for?
I don't know, because I think the way Rick has the debt laid out is different than I have. I don't, Rick, where is that Trunk Highway 25? What's that from? I don't have that. I only have the fire station and the fire truck. And I just kept those in as a fire, township fire contract. That's revenue that we get from the townships, and then the fire truck fund is also from relief and township funds. I just have, his is just a little bit different, but.
Is your bottom number the same?
The debt service.
It says fire station, fire truck.
Can we pull it up on the screen where we're at? or
Yeah,
what?
I have it on the screen. The problem is it's, for some reason it's not coming up there.
All right.
It's the same, that's the same as this packet. I can copy my, like, the one that I drafted. I just didn't wanna confuse people with having two, but I think I'm already confusing people.
Well, we need to decide which approach we wanna take.
Yeah, I guess it's just a difference in budget, like budgeting styles, and I was
The
trying.
bottom line should still be the same.
Bottom
Yeah.
line.
The math should do the math, right?
Bottom line should be the same, I agree.
But Maggie's number's different.
Not.
Yeah.
Well, she's missing a set of numbers though, right?
I don't think so.
It's,
I mean, these are the
Highway
numbers
25
that I
is in
worked
there.
with
This
for
is here.
with
Highway
Abdo.
25 is there?
So I don't know.
That's
Number
correct.
3. Okay, in red. Okay, what
I
is,
still don't get it, not hers.
what is number 2?
It's still a substantial number, isn't it?
I guess the debt that I have on file is based on the audit that we had from Abdo.
So you worked with
Recommend.
Abdo on this number, and Abdo recommended not to do it that way, or?
Well, I think it's just a different style. I mean, this is what they told me to do. I mean, how we could do it, is keep it essentially pretty similar to how Luann did it.
I think bottom line, and again, I don't
I think it's
wanna
just,
downplay any of the work that's been done, and it sounds like we maybe need to look at these things, but you need to be comfortable with it. You have to work with it next
I
year.
think Rick just has a different, like, the transfers, and I think it's just a different budgeting style.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that eventually,
Right.
but like I say, I mean, we're coming down to the end now. You need to be comfortable with it in 2018, know where we're sitting.
Yeah.
Where everything's coming and
Um,
going.
Yeah, and I might have to sit down with you, Rick, on that one, that special assessment, 'cause I don't have that. I don't have the trunk Highway 25 roundabout.
I've got Kyle's making copies.
Oh, okay, great.
But things shouldn't change much.
The alternative is, from a budget review perspective, this would be your size document.
Well, that's what we used to look
Yeah,
at.
Yeah, yeah.
it's not what I would call user-friendly, just going through the process. This probably
Answer the right
represents
questions.
what your final document will look more like, but I have to admit, I didn't necessarily discover all the uniqueness of this till I was in the 11th hour working on some of this.
Right. Okay. So what are your, so how do we combine these?
So,
What
I
is
mean,
your-
I think they're
what is
pretty,
your
I think they're
revenue
pretty
numbers?
similar. I think they're pretty similar in revenue projections. I think we just differ on the special assessments and transfers. My my final revenue and expenditure is $1,106,974.272.
Say it again.
Oh, I'm sorry, $1,106,000. And this is without the adjustments to, so I would have to make a $41,000 increase. No, it would be the same, I would just have to make a decrease to the general property taxes up on top. But, 'cause we're increasing revenue in the building, permits, snow, and charitable giving, just 1,000. So that'll stay the same, it's $1,106,974.72.
And that's that's pretty much the difference between the special assessments and the transfers then.
Right.
57, yeah. That's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Within about $1,000.
Less than, yeah.
The balance of where the transfers in, really, it's a recognition that some of these activities really should be spread amongst a number of funds. Your comp plan, for example, will include water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater evaluations or whatever. And Dave Martini, I'll see you get copies of that. I asked him to break down that $33,000 that he will be charging for the engineering component of the comp plan update. So these numbers do match up with his breakdown. And auditing services, auditing is costing you $30,000 a year. Clearly, the audit encompasses more than just the general fund. So you're transferring in the utility fund's share of the audit expense. And you could do it, you could show the net on the expense side and not have any transfers in. But based on my experience, this is probably a better assurance of making sure that the other funds pay for their fair share rather than netting it out on in the general fund itself. Stormwater drainage, pond dredging, and engineering fees, stormwater fund. It appears that the storm water type expenses are in the general fund, but yet you have a stormwater utility fund that is charging fees and raising the revenue to pay for stormwater expenses. So there again, you've got 17.5 is already showing up in your general fund budget. It has historically. And I'm just saying this is an additional transfer in.
Yeah.
It's a matter of having the funds, the appropriate funds pay for the expense.
Yeah, and I guess I'm wondering if maybe, just to simplify it, maybe I could, because I haven't done it that way, but like I know maybe sticking with the past and then working with Abdo to maybe for next year working to see if the transfers, because I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've just never done it, and maybe that's something I need to ask Abdo about to help educate me to understand that process a little bit more. I don't know if you're okay with that.
And I agree, I think we need to look at it, I think those are good points. I don't know.
Yeah, I get, like, I definitely get the, like, having the enterprise funds pay for certain things and
Yeah.
that the general fund's paying for. I just,
And they should.
and maybe in the time between now and December, I can actually talk with Abdo about doing that.
All right, let's keep moving forward through it, and so we can get to the end numbers, see where we're coming in for the levy,
Okay.
the final levy, see what we'll do for preliminary, how that looks, and compared to last year, and where we feel, again, we can come in a little high knowing we can lower it, but we don't want to come in too high and panic people either.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are we doing expenses now, or?
Yeah.
Yep.
Go through that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I don't know if you want to go through yours, Rick, or I know you don't really have a voice. Let's see.
How did it increase so much?
That's a hell of a jump.
Double?
Well, why did the legal fees go up $15,000?
I think the legal fees, I think it went up because based on your historical data. I don't know if
Yeah.
there's been some legal stuff.
Oh, we had a lot
Yep.
this
Yeah,
year.
so I don't
With,
foresee.
yeah, yeah.
I don't foresee that going
That
up.
for sure can go back down to about where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had the compost.
Well, I think you should get the breakdown on this because 25, I acknowledge, was a fairly aggressive adjustment, And I was just trying to relate it to what I believe would be the typical legal expenses for a community of this size. So, I don't know if 10 is sufficient. I didn't have data that went back any farther, but I agree, we should take a look at it.
I'd be comfortable
You
with.
surely don't want to budget what the historical data has been.
I'd be good with 15, but.
I'd rather put 15 in there. I think last year was, and earlier this year was kind of
Yeah,
a
this year definitely was a
extenuating
bigger,
circumstances.
yep. And then the other big change is the 31,200 for health insurance cost.
Well, that was one thing I talked to Rick about. I don't, like, within the next, few months, I know there was I did talk with the mayor a little bit about and I've met with I know a company that kind of reviews this, and maybe having a workshop, just to kind of look at our health plans just for family, just to see what the contribution is. Just based on the numbers that I got from this company that I worked with in 2 other cities, they did a study on 25 other cities and kind of what the average contribution per employee per month is, and it ranges from about $900 to $1,500. So it just really depends on where the city wants to go with that. And so I budgeted for right now we have 600. I budgeted for 1,000 just because that was not, it was more towards the low side. It wasn't jumping a lot.
Were there findings 900 to 1,500 for the family?
That was for that was for if you have a family option. If there's an employee on a family, it would be up to 1,000.
So this 31,000 is just an increase?
That would be so the 31,000. So that would be an increase if we hired
over
a new.
what we're paying now.
Yeah. Right now the total would be if the total would be 60, and this is if you add another full-time employee next year. So it would be 12,000 per year, person per year, because it would be 1,000 per month.
So where the zero is, what are we paying now? What would it?
Right now you have 4 full-time employees times 600 times 12. So I don't have my calculator.
24,000, right? No, add a little bit more. Add 48.
Why did it all zero?
28,
Because this is just an
1,800.
increase, so last year we didn't have an increase.
So right now we're paying 28,800.
28,800.
Today.
Yeah.
But that's if we reimburse 600, because some
Yeah, that's
people
that
may
$800.
not take all 600 if
Right.
their premiums are less than the 600, right?
Right. So
I
you,
know.
it's
Brent-
based.
Brent denies some of the stuff.
Yes. So, that's the one thing too. So theirs is 50% of theirs is covered by water and sewer, and so I had this all calculated out. So that 3,100 would be the increase that you would see for next year, but 24. All the other 4 employees get 50% taken out of for water and sewer, so then 24,000 would come out of water and sewer. So then it would be 36,000 from the general fund that would cover the rest.
But then we're back again to now pulling more out of water sewer. Our rate study is gonna be off again now, correct?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, which is okay. I mean, we can deal with that, but I'm just trying to understand it.
We put Brent and everything in there for water and sewer last year.
I think we certainly need to look, I think we need to plan ahead for next year for possibly additional staff, possibly looking at this stuff, but I think this is too much personally opposite. And again, just my brief conversations with Gary, he thought the individual was fairly competitive at the 600, but the family he thought was way low. He was concerned with that. So I think we do need to look at it, but it can certainly go in steps too. It doesn't have to be a 1 year, just a big increase in 1 year. And I don't know if we need to do that. You know, if I'm looking at,
And
you
is
know,
there,
600 for family, I'd go up to 800, 1,000 possibly.
this
if
is
that's
what
what-
1,000 is,
You know, but not everyone has family,
right?
so it wouldn't be,
This isn't a true number based on our current staff.
It's not a hard number, no.
so I don't mind adding some in. I think we need to plan for some of that possibility of increase, but I think we can step it too. I don't think we need a one big jump. Anything would be a benefit and getting in the right direction. 31,200 seems a lot to me.
Yeah.
So like saying,
I'd be
like,
more in the,
do like 800 next year, 1,000 the following year.
something like that,
To like build it into.
If that's what the study determines we need, you know,
Right.
to get us, you know, competitive.
Yeah, 'cause I think we need to stay competitive to keep our employees,
Agreed, absolutely agree. And it
and
sounds
if
like
we
we're-
try to hire another full-time person.
Yeah. One, in my mind, a full-time person will be only half the year. I don't see it happening before June 1st. So I think I would take anything for another person, considering half the year. I think we could almost cut that 31,200 down in half.
Mhm.
So, on all these other numbers, we're looking at what was budgeted for 2017, 2018. Now we get to this one, and we're not. Is that correct? I am so good.
Yeah, why is it 0 for?
It says it's the net
This was
increase.
the,
This is a new entry,
Yeah, an increase of
it's in
70.
addition to what's already embedded in the budget.
Yeah, so we,
So
So
if
if
we were
you
to
look
hire a
at-
new employee and cover the $1,000 for family, that's what it would be
yeah.
for everybody.
You have what's in the personnel line items,
Is that where
and then
it is?
you add the 31 in. That's probably the easiest way to play around with that number. If you embed it in the personnel line items, you know,
Okay,
you're making more work out of it than you should.
all right.
okay. Do you have any other questions for general government?
What did we change this one to?
I'm gonna look at it by cutting it down to 800,
Yeah.
which would then, I think, reduce it almost in half.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, council wages stay the same. I don't know if you guys have any interest in changing that. City administrator goes down a little bit. And that'll, like I said, I kinda suggested that stay in the general fund. I don't know, I mean, I'm fine with, and I'm fine with keeping the training and travel the same as 2017. Unless, Rick, did you want
We
to?
do that much travel, do we? I mean, you don't use that much mileage, do we?
No, I usually don't even
Is that the whole city, the fire
No,
department?
it's
That's
city.
just me.
Okay,
Is it
okay.
just you, or is it you and Janelle?
No, Janelle is separate.
Okay.
I don't know to what extent Luann went to, different conferences and that and training.
Are they out of the metro area, Rick?
Yeah.
Are they?
Some of them would be. I don't know when was the last time she attended a state conference. It's, somewhat of a practice, and it's in, Maggie's contract that, you know, she can become a member of the International City Managers Association, and that would, possibly mean attending a conference from time to time. So, our numbers are reflective of the staff person probably participating in these things more than maybe what Luann has in the past.
And I think I would like to see you do them. Be involved in that. So again, if we leave it at that, we're talking, I mean, we're only talking $500, $1,000, $1,250, so it's not a huge amount. So I'm fine with leaving that as is for now.
Boards and commissions would stay the same. Deputy clerk, and then, as you can see, there's an addition of the administrative clerk. I believe that salary for the administrative clerk is based on the same salary that's the temporary, which is 15 an hour.
So that would be.
And then 50% of that is covered by water and sewer.
Explain that again, so why did it go from 13.6 to 36?
Oh, 'cause last year, that one's just the deputy clerk position. The 2018 is the deputy clerk and administrative clerk. That was two positions. Yep. And
So is that going for a full-time?
2 full-time.
full-time, and then,
Okay, that's factoring a full-time person.
yes, and then 50% of that that's just 50% of their wages. Another 50% will be shown in the water and sanitary sewer fund.
And that, I don't, right away, I don't think we have to account for a full year. I don't see that happening, hiring someone right away in January.
Right.
If we're gonna have someone come in and look at everything and do an assessment, or we do it ourselves, either way, we gotta be April, May, June before we'd even hire someone, wouldn't we?
So we're giving them a temporary person in hopes that then they would probably be done in the spring semester
They'd probably be done in January.
in January, and so then we're saying, then we're back to only one person until June.
Yeah, well, until we determine if we need to hire some, make sure, see how things now.
Right, but I think that wouldn't we see like now within the next 2 or months, like in November, and make the decision and then start the hiring process, in beginning of January, and hopefully hire beginning of March?
We can make that decision that quick.
I'm not
That's-
convinced we need full-time.
That's what we
I'm
wanna
not
do.
convinced either, and I would say I would rather wait until Maggie gets.
I want Maggie to get her
Yeah.
arms around everything.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the intent of this
Get
6-month
settled in
person, so
and-
we're gonna have this 6-month person, October, November, December, January, February, into March.
Right, but she's thinking that this person is actually probably gonna be done in January, when they go back to school.
Oh, I missed that.
Possible.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
I
just
missed
mentioned
that.
they were trying, that he might go back to school in the spring semester.
Oh, I missed that.
Sorry.
Then maybe we should've went with one of the other people.
It's kind of uncertain, but I think
Okay.
because, I wasn't sure if it was just because, like, the process took longer than we thought.
Oh, okay,
Um,
I missed that. Okay, that's fine then,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'd like to see you get your arms around it, see what and decide if we really need another person and really
And that's
assess
one
that.
of the numbers we could maybe adjust,
Yeah.
before December,
Yeah.
when we have a
Yeah,
better handle
agreed.
of things, like, 'cause you can always
Agreed.
reduce your levy, you can't increase it.
Because
So
it's
I'd
really
rather
three-quarter of a
leave
per
it
diem.
up, and, because I just hate to say like, well,
Agreed. I'm
we
good
gave
with
you a
that.
temporary person, but now we're not gonna hire again until June, and the person decides to be done, or whatever. Maybe we don't need that with
Yeah.
Maggie's, processes and stuff, but,
I'm good with that. I'm good with leaving it now.
yeah,
and
I'm not
when we
fighting,
do-
I'm just,
We definitely need a discussion on it.
yes,
before we
I just don't
finalize
think we
the
can make a
levy.
decision
Yeah.
today.
And 6 months might have been a stretch, but I think we could cut a quarter out the first quarter. Q1 could probably cut out, I'm assuming.
Right, but maybe
they go
make that
0.75.
decision in November,
I'm good
when we
with
have a
that.
little more time in our hands, instead of going, crap, we really needed that.
I'm
money.
good with that.
So then therefore that benefits and withholding still based on both of those
Would go
positions,
down.
both being full-time.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what it's based on, yep. Elections would go up because it's an election year. Assessor services, that I got an email back today, actually. I think it'll go up like 5%. Planning and zoning, I believe that increase is mostly, engineering for the comp plan. So that'll be just a 1-year increase to
Okay.
finish the comp plan, and then it'll go back down.
No, that's not the engineering.
Isn't that the engineering for the comp plan, the 33,000? If you go on the next page.
On the next,
No,
yeah.
plan update.
Yeah, that'll drop off considerably. if
Okay,
not
so that's a
zero.
one-time to get our comp plan
Yeah.
Okay.
done. and we need to do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Rick, and Rick might have a little more on the computer, do you?
Not
Yeah.
really.
No?
All
I
right.
know we're changing from Frontier to, I can't think of the name. Do you know the name of, Techstar?
Yeah, well, that's it.
Yeah, Techstar, and they're kind of helping us right now with the transition,
Okay.
over.
That was going to be done too.
Mhm.
So, I'm not sure.
Police contract, I think, can come down. I think that's too high. I'll take down under 100.
I'd be happy leaving it just at 100 in case we needed somebody
Leave some
part-time.
overtime. I like the idea of having some overtime and
Yeah.
that flexibility.
Yeah, 'cause that's what we talked about is having extra for overtime.
Why do professional services go down under the community center? Is this the cleaning and the,
No, that's, yeah, it's professional services cleaning or it's repair maintenance cleaning for the community center.
That would,
it's really cool.
Rick, do you know?
I'll have to look here.
What?
That probably should have had an asterisk by it,
Which one?
the professional services under the community
Historical.
center. It's jumped all over the place.
Okay.
4,600 in 2016, budgeted to 8,580, and you've spent through July about 2,500.
Okay.
So what are professional what's in that line item?
That is janitorial.
I think if I remember right, we increased it with his company, coming in with the fact that we thought we were going to pay more.
Yep.
Mhm.
If I remember right.
And I think Kit's company paid some of that difference.
Yeah.
That I don't, I think that we negotiated something
But I
back
think
with
we
them.
thought it would be a little higher, but
Okay.
you know, maybe.
Well, then what's
Only
the
paid
repairs and
25
maintenance?
through July? That's if something breaks or goes down or.
Right.
But why is that going up $4,000 in a year?
Because there are things that should be repaired or replaced in this building. That's what the idea was, from what I understand, is that with the additional revenue coming in from the youth program, we'd maybe put some of that money back into the facility, because I know this year we're replacing several of the doors here, and there's cabinets, some of that kind of stuff.
The
I'm
doors
fine with
have
the
like
increase.
clear packing tape on them. This was prior to Kit's company coming in, like, we did like a whole tour, and we did some painting around and changed some, like, little minor
I'm
things.
fine with the increase.
I don't mind that,
Yeah.
because that'll be, we can change carpet if we need to.
Well, you don't know what's gonna, yeah.
Well, I just wanna
We
make
were just
sure,
talking about that, yeah.
I also wanna make sure that in there, we get something up there about safety glass.
Yeah.
I wanna make sure we have money in the budget to get safety glass up at the
Supposed
front
to
desk.
be there.
Yeah, that should be in this year. We still should be able to do it this year.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, the glass company hasn't cooperated in getting back to any of
But I
us.
wanna look
Even
at,
another
I wanna
glass
look at the
company.
whole council chambers,
It's
the
about
desks, the
$700.
chairs, the carpet.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
a
it's
lot of
been
this
a
stuff
couple
has to
years
be-
before we kinda did a whole discussion about the community center, walking around, looking at, you know, we
didn't
did
even
some
look at
little,
this area.
yeah, we didn't look at even in here.
Right.
Then, all right, let's leave the increase.
I think there's a lot we can do and should do in this room also to,
A couple years ago, we talked about it.
make it a little bit nicer and maybe have more of a, instead of these desks, more of a,
But isn't that like
Get our
part
computers
capital
up.
outlay? If you would replace carpet and do some remodeling, isn't
Right.
that capital outlay? Okay.
yeah, some maybe, yeah, could go under repair and maintenance. We had to fix the carpet, or if we replace carpet because of stains, and, I mean, you could probably move that.
Okay.
I mean, our revenue has increased $1,000.
Right.
For, you know, like, we only made like 2,000, you know, in rentals.
I think we should be putting a lot of that back into it.
Yeah.
And you want the police contract to go down, because that reflected even more,
So it's like a 1.5.
1.5.
What do you wanna set that at? Maggie, do you have a firm figure from the county on that?
I have the contract on my desk.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure it's 89.
Yeah,
It was around.
That's about right,
Yeah.
see, we already had budgeted in there for the extra person.
Yeah,
Yes.
last year.
I don't know, what do you think it should go down to?
I think 100.
Me too.
Yeah, that's kinda what we talked about. We like 10,000 for overtime, if we needed it.
Yeah,
We got it.
or 10%.
Okay.
All right. Everything else on that page looks good to me. All right, so the fire stuff up top on that page, top of page 6, we're at zeros on a lot of them. That got moved somewhere?
Yeah, it, basically, they have been moved to, because the way the budget was set up, these numbers were budgeted, but at the end of the fiscal year, whatever, in the cases where fire revenue exceeded fire expenses, that was the transfer made to the capital outlay type funds. So, 2 years ago, it was like 56,000, and last year it was 78. These were never expensed out. They never showed up as an expense.
That stuff was never spent.
Right. So,
So basically, you moved all those
That's my
zeros.
argument for zero
to
based
that
budget.
$100,000.
I was just gonna say that, you're gonna get your
Yeah.
zero-based
This
budget.
is what Eric's been wanting for years.
well, I think the philosophy appears to be that if fire department ran the department in good order and revenues exceeded expenses, that would represent the capital outlay dollars that would be transferred into fire department truck, actually. That's probably a misnomer, and that should be relabeled. But, there wasn't any actual expenditures against these items.
I do know that we did get some good grants,
Yep.
for some of the equipment and things that I think that we knew are coming, because I know their gear and the air packs have expiration dates. And I know that there was a big win, I can't remember if it was last year or even this year, that Rod got a huge grant that covered, I think it was a couple years ago, for air packs.
Yeah.
But I do know that he has to budget for it because
Well-
they have to replace them,
Yep.
but
And-
then he writes grants.
They also purchase protective gear, they purchase turnout gear, I don't know what budget that money's coming out of, what line item.
It's probably coming out of the capital fund that's been created.
So am I understanding that everything that's a zero for 2018, you moved it to this transfer to
Yes.
equipment acquisition fund? Okay.
The convenience of that is,
It's at 100,000 at the
it,
bottom.
That's the vehicle, the grass rating?
No,
Well,
it's
it says
all,
transfer to equipment acquisition fund, SCBA,
yeah,
CCD radios, fund
actually,
vehicles,
there's
trash
more
pickup,
money
et cetera.
budgeted in the capital outlay than there is those that are zeroed out.
Yeah, I see
because,
that, yeah, it's like a $15,000 difference.
They are looking at, I think it's 15, yeah.
Where's that fund?
But it was,
I don't know.
I'm not saying anything was done inappropriate, it was just a different way to deal with some of this. And so, that's why it took me one whole meeting for Rod to understand, his expectations were that the truck fund was probably double than what it was. And in reality, that's where all of the capital expenditures are really coming out of,
Well,
so.
then they're just then we're doing something wrong on our end.
They're just earmarked wrong.
Yeah,
Right,
they're
Still, they are.
right.
I mean, when we budget for those things and then he spends money on those things, that's where that's the line item that should have been, it should have been taken out
Some of
of.
this is coming out of that capital budget.
That's not the intent. That's not the way it,
So basically, what
That's
it
Capital
sounds
is
like
for big
to me,
things, right? The
Yeah,
capital
but
improvement.
you got a $45,000 expense in any given year, you're not gonna put that in an operating budget. Makes no sense.
Okay,
Your
and it's all,
budget's gonna be going like this.
yeah, and it also says new equipment. Why isn't that, if we're looking at buying what is this? New equipment, that could be anything. Why not, if you need new equipment, tell me what that equipment is.
well, we
Is
have.
it 45,000?
are we looking at hoses, are we looking
Yeah.
at trucks, what are we looking at?
That's
Dryers for
that's been my whole problem with
turnout.
this, the way the city budgets from the very beginning, is that this is what happens, is we budget for things like new equipment or stuff that doesn't get purchased, and it really feels like this money is rolling over at the end of the year for another grand purpose.
But it's budget based on a capital improvement plan.
Yes, and on
that
top,
we
on top of
never
that,
have seen this
that's
year.
right.
Plan, that needs to be finalized yet. But the plan is not dependent on any additional revenue. So that 100,000 plus what's in this capital fund will be utilized to address a number of capital or equipment items that need to be addressed.
And I'd wanna see the fire department budget to see exactly what those things are.
And we can look at, and we'll have time to look at
That's
those.
the intent, it will be
Do
forthcoming.
we?
Well, yeah, we do by December.
Okay.
So I understand, just so I understand, in 2018, we have 4 of them with zeros now. So all those moved down into this 100,000?
Yes.
And they just got bucketed, so in reality, it went up 85, it went up 15,000. Okay, but this.
The other thing is that, pretty hard to do the long-range planning on equipment or capital items if the actual money that's getting transferred to capital fund is jumping all over the place. There's nothing wrong with that philosophy, but Rod should know exactly what monies are available coming in, so you can create the five-year
Mhm.
plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
But,
And that's what I wanna see.
yep. Okay, so right now, it's a $15,000 increase. in
So it looks
budget.
like one thing he's looking for this year is a smaller grass rig. That's something new,
no, that's more long-term, but
more long-term.
Some
the
of the capital, some of the money
SCBA's
for
clock is
capital.
ticking on those.
Yep.
The person.
Well, and how much is that
protecting
gonna cost
equipment.
and how many does he need in 2018?
Yeah, and
That's
he
what I want
should
to
know
know.
that, he should
And
know
I
that.
know, I know you should know that, but
You're gonna be given that.
give me those numbers.
You're gonna be given that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to look at those.
All that needs to be the concern right now is
Mhm.
this math.
I know.
There will not be any further dependence on an operating transfer than
That's fine.
100,000.
Okay,
Just move on.
Okay.
okay, well, we'll mark that one.
From my perspective, this is gonna clean it up. It really is.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move to the fire station.
Where'd the debt service go?
Last page.
So it's still there, you just moved it to a
Yes.
different, oh, there it is, okay.
If this was a special revenue fund, you would line up the fire department revenues with the fire department expenses. But the fire department is part of the general fund, so there's no sense showing a debt service payment here, because at the end of the day, the general fund is covering all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it does document a little better, it leads to the front page property tax levy for debt service. Same thing with the next one. On page 8, they're addressed under,
Okay. So it just moved,
yes.
Yeah.
okay. And building inspections go up double?
Well, that's because we were
That's
gonna increase.
based on the, that's based on the increase. So we pay 33%
Okay,
of each
yep.
permit.
Okay, so that's captured.
So that's
up
what
and
he
down.
was saying,
Yeah.
that like, if
That's
building
for those-
permits come down, this
Then
will
that will
also
change.
come down.
Yeah.
Not dollar for
Not
dollar,
as-
but-
yeah.
Yep, okay, good enough. Yep.
Yeah, that's the relationship between
Yeah.
the expense and the revenue.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're banking 60,000 plus a year as
Okay.
a general revenue.
What's the civil defense repair and maintenance?
Is that just our,
Outdoor warning sirens?
yeah,
Are they, the city actually owns those, or are those county owned?
That, I never did get.
I think we bought that horn, didn't we?
I doubt that.
I have no idea.
Oh. We did.
I don't know.
Which one are we
$450.
talking about? We did, was it the one just out?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, sure, that one for the
Because
newer
we had to
position
move the
could
pole,
hear.
put a different pole up, and we put another, and I think we bought, I think.
Okay,
I have no idea what it is.
okay. I buy that.
I know it had to move,
Yeah, I do remember that now.
one,
Okay.
I don't remember why.
Yeah. And then the animal control, is that in the event of impounded dogs?
Right.
That is. How much is that actually running, what we spend?
Depends upon how many Kyle can catch.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Or if the owner comes and gets them before we have to get rid of it. That's such a low
Yeah, oh,
number.
yeah.
Streets and roads went up because.
so what's the operating supplies for the streets and roads that went up?
Wages.
Well, the wages didn't go up that much, I'm just looking at the operating supplies. The account includes tools?
Yeah, operating supplies, we put $5,000 in there to cover the cost, that's boots, locating equipment, our shirts, shovels, tools, hand tools and stuff, we just take it out of repairs and maintenance on the roads, we never really had a set line item for it, we just kind of moved it.
So it's just transferred from something else to create a new,
Yep.
okay.
So, little things.
And the engineering fees, I'm assuming that's Dave Martini too?
Yeah.
And that's the same principle.
Right.
It jumped because you just took it out of the general fund, or whatever, just gave it to this
It is.
department.
It looks like, is he working to do the development of a pavement plan?
Yeah,
Oh, is he?
yeah.
Is that what he's doing? Okay, yeah, I know
Oh,
we
is
talked
that-
about it.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Mill and overlay, pavement, the capital improvement plan for the roads, so.
Okay.
That's what we did.
Yeah, it's a one-time engineering project.
Oh, I see, okay. Otherwise, engineering that we do on,
Projects. Yeah, this
out of
relates to
highway,
a
streets and
soft,
roads, comes out of just general engineering fund, right? I don't.
that, some of it probably does. Typically, if it's a large project, that's gonna be part of your funding for that project, and that becomes part of an assessment. But yeah, the engineering fee, 10,000 is for the development of a pavement management plan, which is a long-range planning tool for upgrading the streets and so forth.
Your seal coating is 30,000, what we do every year, Kyle?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit more than what we did last year. We're trying to build that one back up. It's a big project, back up. And then the skid loader's on for replacement
Well,
for next year.
Okay. But that's still, all our streets, are we on a rotating, I mean, do we have it sectioned out? If we do it every 5 years, do we have it in 5 different sections and we know,
Not yet.
I mean,
But, yeah, that's the,
we
hopefully,
should know,
when we
right?
do the improvement plan, the capital improvement plan for the roads, then we'll kind of get a better,
okay.
because Dave and I drove around earlier this year and kind of seal coating lines are good for this year.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah.
but we should have some built up. We
Right.
didn't use any this year.
Right, yeah, so we had 40 grand, or
So-
20 grand we put in
Finish them
this
with
year
our-
for seal coating.
Okay.
And we had some from last year we put up for seal coating, now this is all
Right.
of that.
But if we
Should
take
be
all our
under
roads, divide them out by 5, we should know how
Right.
much we need
Every
always.
year.
Yeah.
We'll never have to worry.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
Kyle, do you suspect that type of an expenditure, if it's budgeted but not spent, that ultimately is a bottom line revenue or an expense that didn't occur, so some of that gets transferred into your street capital fund?
Right.
Right.
Yep, it's the public, this is the public works fund, that all that gets transferred.
Just like the fire department, and the
Mhm.
boards, and everything else that doesn't spend the money that's
What's the
budgeted.
skid loader?
Say that again?
The purchase skid loader?
Yep, yeah, skid loader's on the four-year rotation, and that's due for replacement.
It'll be 20 grand.
Next, get a bigger model and with an attachment. So,
What did we
Which
buy?
was in his CIP.
yes.
Yeah, what did we buy this one for that you have now? How much?
This one with the trade-in of the other one, I can't remember that number off the top of my head.
Okay.
I know we bought a few different cabinets with that.
I was under the impression getting on this, every 4-year plan,
Yep.
if we went out too many miles, we'd have quite a bit of value left in that.
Oh, it has, yeah.
We'd only be
It's
looking
still
about
worth
another
about
5,000.
30,000.
Okay,
So, yep, that 20 grand will cover,
okay.
If it's a certain year too,
yeah.
is it the one before they made that change?
I don't know.
There's some change that if you have a machine, it's actually worth more.
And this is actually, we got a smaller, we had a bigger skid steer, then we went to
Okay.
a smaller one, but now that we're kind of going forward piles around the compost site, it'd be nicer to have the bigger one, and this one doesn't dump in the, dump
Okay.
trucks that easy,
Okay.
so.
But this would be with the trade-in,
So that's-
obviously.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
think
So
it
it
paid like
should be, it
32,000
should be lower than
for it.
20,000.
Okay.
Okay, so that 25 is real conservative.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else on that page that jumps out to anyone?
So on page 8, the compost repairs and maintenance, $2,000, and we had nothing this year. What are we repairing and or maintaining at the compost?
Weeds and gravel.
And we weren't doing that before?
We didn't have, we were doing it, but we were kind of taking it out for roads. Or we had the Roundup, we had the product, but we weren't budgeting for it out
On the compost?
of the compost.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Can I just go up real quick, Liz, to capital outlay on the parks
Mm-hmm.
is 0, so that's obviously getting moved somewhere.
That's getting to that last line item, the transfer out park improvement fund.
The fund, so it's 30 grand.
Mhm.
So we went from 59.8 last year to 30 this year, in a
Mhm.
sense.
What does the park board donate to other organizations?
Well,
And I talked to, oh yeah, what did we do?
we are not, since, I had mentioned that since I've been on the park board, we have never donated to anything. That originally, there was like $1,000 or $2,000 that we set aside to donate to the Watertown, like not public ed, recreational.
Community ed.
Community ed.
But-
But since I've been on the board, there has not been one donation that's been made. So we were gonna look into, or have Maggie or Rick look into seeing what the laws were around, with the Minnesota, with
Public
donating.
expenditures.
Yeah, but I, from what I understand, in talking with the park board during that last meeting, is they are not comfortable spending that money because they don't wanna take taxpayer money in to donate somewhere else. So,
And what I can tell you about that donation was that was something that came from the baseball club.
I probably thought
And
so.
this is the line item that she put it in. That's why it was
Okay.
in the park board.
Because, yeah, since I've been on the park board, nothing's ever gone out, there's never been an expenditure.
Well,
Okay.
they were doing it for, the community ed was asking for it, in kind for, running programs over here, our T-ball and things like that. It was to help them.
And if the city was paying for it, it wasn't coming out of the park board in the last 6 years, that's all I know.
Yeah,
Is that-
it
that
kind of went by
balance?
the wayside. They were using it to, they wanted money to come here and run programs initially,
Yep.
donations.
I would like to see that back down to zero as well as the rest of the park board.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
That just seems weird.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna take some of your
Donate
taxpayer
to the
dollars,
city
and then
water
we're gonna
tower.
pick where we're gonna donate it.
Because, yeah, that we thought that was kind of, like, what does the League of Minnesota Cities have to say about taking tax dollars to donate to other places, so,
And then why does it say transfer out park improvement fund?
because that's the old capital outlay.
Yeah.
So it's already in there? Or no, we're levying for it?
Park Improvement Fund, which is a, separate fund. It's, I guess, I'm trying to think of the word, but,
Is that the 220 fund?
yeah, probably.
Okay, so that money's already in there?
No, there's 300,000 in the fund. This is a transfer, I think we talked about, park shelter may consume a pretty good share of that. We went through a list, which will be part of the capital improvement budget, and it seemed like 30,000 plus what's in the fund would be appropriate.
So they're planning on using the entire fund, and then they're budgeting or levying
Over a
another
period of time,
30,000,
probably, yeah.
another
This-
30,000 this year.
This is,
And that just transfers right in there?
I guess I'm just confused about why it's called transfer out park improvement fund. So it's kind of like, it's their old capital outlay, right?
Mhm.
yes.
And it's not a transfer of funds we already have. It is money, new monies that we're levying.
This is new money.
Okay. All right.
And just so does that then transfer right away into the fund?
No,
Does-
that's what they use throughout the year to
No,
fulfill their
but
CIP.
if it's a line item
Yeah.
transfer out, so
Oh.
January.
I mean, so, yeah, so I
January
get what you're
2nd
saying.
So January 2nd, does it just transfer then into that fund? Because it's a
No.
line item, but the line items transfer out.
I
Yeah,
know.
if that's the case, then it's gone.
Mhm.
There's no way.
Is that how
we're
it
gonna
works? Is that
levy
how
if
it
that's
works?
the way
Is
it
that what you
works.
guys discussed?
No.
That's not what we discussed.
Okay. Okay, so it's just there to use in the budget. It doesn't necessarily January 2nd just transfer in there and it's gone, and the 220 fund goes up 30 grand.
Oh, that's not the way I took it.
Well, the line is, that's how it
Oh.
reads.
It's a transfer. I don't know exactly when it would occur. You need to look at the city's cash flow and so forth to determine.
Well, I suppose we'd have to do
But
a
there's
resolution to
Oh.
transfer
capital
it.
budget.
Yeah, you do have to do it.
We'd have
So
to-
you're transferring it out of the 220 fund, putting it into their budget, but we levy for it, so we get it all throughout the year.
220, is that
That's the part,
it's not coming out of the 220, it's going into the city fund.
Yeah.
and that's what they use, well, it's the same thing. It's either going in their budget or into the 220. Doesn't matter, right?
It's the same thing as
So-
capital outlay, right?
Yeah.
It's just,
It's just going into the 220
it
fund.
operates the same way as capital outlay.
Can it, I mean,
I'm
And
confused.
then at the
If
end of the year,
you-
whatever left in there gets transferred to the fund.
but doesn't, like, if you keep it in the capital outlay, can't the remaining of that still be transferred?
That's the
So
way it
that's how they
was.
work.
At the end of the year.
Right.
That's what we've always done in the past.
But this just reads different to me. It
Mhm.
may
Yeah.
still be that way. Maybe the intent's still there to do it that way, but
I don't know.
nothing can transfer without a resolution anyway, so. Okay, I just was curious, I'm fine with it.
Is it 30 grand? Great description.
Mhm.
Really, that's what-
Yep. Okay.
You feel like that's low?
Yeah, that's a,
It is lower compared to previous years, but
Why are we continuing to fund something that has $300,000 sitting in there? I would rather see $30,000 coming off it.
Their intent is, well, if we could see their CIP, we
Yeah,
probably know
we would know
that
that.
they're gonna spend that
Yeah,
300
on
or close
something,
to
yeah.
it, and then they're needing the 30 to do other things in other parks. I get
But
it.
overall, it's still lower than last
It's
year.
just that it's reading different, it's not,
It's no more than last year,
Yeah,
it's less
still-
than last year.
Still less
it's
than
still
last
less,
year.
yeah.
There's always been some type of contribution or transfer that ultimately ends up in that park improvement fund.
Mhm.
And again, it's kind of similar to the math I explained earlier, where the amounts may be budgeted, but the actual transfer takes into consideration what level of expenditures were in the balance of the park budget. So if there's excessive spending in the other line items, historically, there maybe hasn't been the budgeted amount transferred.
What throws me off is just the words that say transfer
Yep,
out.
yep,
If it
me
just
too.
said park improvement fund, $30,000,
Mhm.
that just, it seems odd. All right, that's a CIP we'll be looking at.
Yeah, and
The fire
that's a
department in the
policy
next couple
decision.
months.
Mhm.
Okay, let's keep trudging through.
I think professional services, is it at 2 years? Should be 6,500.
Yes, that's correct, should be 65,
Yep.
because we've got all the weeding and
That's the spring.
Which one?
professional services, top item.
Oh, and then they still have the 2,000 recreation program. That's supposed to be going to community ed, and I don't think it ever does either.
No, that 2,000 recreation program is for Mayor Moxie.
They haven't done that for
A year and a half, 2 years, right,
it should be like the third year?
probably. But it's in there for the 5K, for when we do the 5K.
Oh, sure.
So, because that's where we would take with Mayor Moxie, we would take that money and do the 5K. so.
Sure. All right.
All right,
So then we still have what, $5,410.89 in the old schoolhouse park fund, correct? So
That's what it would be. I've suggested to Maggie and Janelle that the auditor come in
And move,
and clean up some of this stuff. There are so many unused accounts
Well,
in the budget document.
that account was an account that she opened because,
the donations and the stuff, huh?
yeah,
Yeah, gotcha, okay.
Yeah, I think it just needs a little housekeeping.
and it just never got
I think
transferred
we-
out of there or
I think we need to
used
clean
or,
those up.
I mean, use it, spend it on something. I don't think the park board even knows it's there half of it. Okay, where are we? Compost, blah, 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 debt service, we already talked about that, right?
Yep,
Okay,
just need to have things redone.
so this, just, even with the accounting changes, the bottom line is still like quite an
Similar.
increase, but boy, by 5, 10,
Where did we get the 12% growth in,
From the county assessor's
county.
office.
told us that? And those are new houses that are now just gonna come on to our.
Part of it would be new construction, part of it is just appreciation in existing property.
Cause a lot of these new houses won't actually come onto our
No,
thing until like 2019.
it would be,
It's 2
for
years.
them to be in the next year's tax capacity, they have to be evaluated by January 1st, 2nd of 2017.
And then also the values of homes are going up, probably again for
Oh.
next year.
Yep.
Which then also helps your,
Always a year or more behind with the process. So the 12% is reflective of the change from January 2nd, 2017 versus January 2nd of 2016. So
cool.
if you've seen even further, I'm sure the trend is gonna continue.
Yeah, that's why we can still be a little bit up, but people's taxes actually don't change
Yeah.
because of the
The
value.
only reason it would change is if their classification changes or their market value goes up more than the 12%. If your valuation goes down, then you should experience more than a 12%.
And we also usually like to bring our examples of our own paperwork when we get in to see how different home values were changing.
So Maggie, what did you have for expense? Did you have the same number?
Yeah, I had my the one I told you before, the same as the revenue, is the same as expense.
Okay.
So it's the 1,106,000.
Your expenses were the same?
Yeah,
as
I
your-
made it the same, and I think, I don't know if Rick's was too,
So
but
you
then
had-
when I,
You had expenses the same.
right, so when I found out the the expenses, then that's how you determine the general levy, based on that. And so then, based on that general levy, which it'll probably, based on some changes we made, go down. So right now I have, and I think Rick's is a little different, it's pretty close. Mine's an 8.47 change in the general, but I think it would go down to like 7. And then I have a total, because I talked to Abdo, and there was a debt service that wasn't accounted for in the past.
Okay.
So that got added, so I'm showing 9.9%, which could go down based on some of the stuff we talked about tonight, but
You're showing a 9.9.
I'm showing 9.9, but I think we need to, kind of,
I mean, in expenses.
this is with everything, yeah.
No, in our
Oh,
levy,
I'm sorry.
9.9%.
No, levy, the general fund, I think would go down to like 7, which would then bring this total with debt, it would be like a 9%.
So as a comparison to last year, how it was done previous years, and trying to keep those numbers so we can compare, and what's the tax rate?
The tax rate that I have right now is 53%.
53%.
And what
Yeah,
were
but I
we-
think it would go down a little bit.
And last year, were we at 59?
I think you were at like
58, 59, I thought. Okay, so it's certainly a decrease
yeah.
overall.
Yeah, so I made sure that Abdul looked at this number too, because it's my first time, just looking at these numbers quickly in the last couple weeks, I just want to make sure I'm interpreting it all correctly.
Did you guys catch what the tax rate was proposed on this?
I'm sorry, what was the?
And that's
53.
because we
What?
have a
53.
fiscal disparity from the county. I don't know if you know what that is. It's kind of like, so based on like industry in the metro, like we put some money in, but then we have, like, I think next year we put in like 70,000, but then we get like 190 back, and so that actually gets deducted from our total levy.
Yep.
So it's kind of like another revenue
Yep.
that offsets our
That's how our numbers
levy.
change after.
Right, and that's what kind of brings it down to 53.
So what was the tax rate here last year?
I have to look.
I wanna, if I remember right, I wasn't.
Around
I
in
don't
there.
remember, to be honest, I don't remember.
I know I had,
It was right under 60.
yeah, I think it was 58,
So now we're
And
looking
then now,
at
this one's gonna be 53.
based
Around.
on,
Even though our expenses are
based on
up.
these numbers, based on this, and we can even,
And it's it's because our tax capacity has gone up because we've had increased
Yeah.
building.
we've been
and-
waiting for that. Yeah, we've been waiting a long time for that.
Yeah.
Now, I just wanna make sure, I guess the way I budget, I'd like to think that our city budget is kind of the same way we all budget in our homes. And I don't like all the complication and this and the wording of all this. I want it a little bit more simplified, and especially since you're gonna be the one that's gonna be doing it for 2018, I wanna make sure that you're comfortable with all the funds and how everything is done, and I appreciate what Rick has done, but you're the one that's gonna be working with it.
Right, and I think.
And I need it simplified for me, I need it
Right.
simplified for the people of this town.
Yeah, and I think what I think the next step would be is to, look at both approaches, look at mine, look at Rick's,
Mhm.
and then maybe also have Abdul
Okay.
inform me if that's a better budgeting
Yeah.
way to do it, because
Yeah.
I don't know that style yet.
Well, there are
But I
auditors,
might
they should be
see-
on board. They need to be,
Right.
they have a stake in this.
Right, 'cause like, his could be, like, better than the way I'm doing it, so
Right.
I got a little bit of research that I need to do.
But I just wanna make sure that you
Yeah.
understand it 100%,
Yeah, and
so
I
you are
just-
comfortable with it for
Right.
the whole year.
Right.
So
I agree.
we feel pretty good about these numbers coming in next week and having those as our preliminary,
I wouldn't say that, but it's our preliminary.
for no, do you feel good about for preliminary?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely some discussions that need to take place between then and December, especially on, like, employment.
I think there'll be a lot of discussion on that, but we gotta make sure next week we're set
Right,
for the
right.
preliminary and
Mhm.
then take the next step and.
With the health insurance, is there anything we need to be doing fairly soon here?
I mean, like I think, I might have a little more, like, I don't know if it would it would probably come to another meeting where I provide you with some information about other cities, and then kind of what are we looking at doing, kind of how it's covering our employees right now, and if we wanna make, like, at least for family, like a different contribution. So, I'll bring that information, and based on the discussion tonight, it sounds like we don't wanna go the full, like, jumping it right now, but maybe looking at doing a step. And so, that's
It
kind
depends
of.
when you come back, I mean.
Right,
Mhm. I think
More than
that's.
a thousand's a big increase.
And so I think right now, what I'll do is I'll budget for the 800 instead of the 1,000, and then between now and December, we can make an adjustment if we determine.
Pay $1,000 for family health insurance. That's all. Even the county didn't pay $1,000 for family health insurance.
But if other cities are, that doesn't mean the county's right either.
So are these the kinds of studies that, are pertinent to size of cities?
I
Or,
think the one that was done was, I think they told me it was Big Lake, and then they went out, which is, like, and then they went out like 50 miles. So they kind of looked at, like,
an area?
in an area based
That's
on.
a great way to do it.
The province Big Lake has a lot more big.
Right, they're comparing it to, I suppose, Buffalo or wherever, so.
Well, and health premiums have, skyrocketed the last several years, so I think some places have compensated and increased that. I mean, I used to only pay like $400 for Nate and the kids, and now I'm paying $700 out of pocket. Because my employer doesn't give me $600. But we don't have a family plan. But I feel like we need to be comparable to other cities. I'm not saying my company does a great job. Yeah, I mean, we have to be.
Absolutely. We wanna keep them retaining good employees.
All right, so we'll just be ready on Monday then with the final numbers and use that for preliminary.
So this is the only thing we'll be seeing on Monday, is just the final numbers, or, I mean, when do we sit down and look at a little bit more detail? And
I mean, I think we can provide that, like, we can provide what, the actual line items in that packet, and I'll try really hard to get it out tomorrow if I can get all the materials, otherwise it will be hopefully Friday morning, and then you guys hopefully will have enough time to look over the weekend at a little more detail.
I would suggest then, after we get this preliminary done, then we work backwards. If we're gonna look at the first meeting in December to approve everything, start working back when we're gonna have work sessions, and I think we should have
That gantry chart.
at least two of them.
I'm sorry.
At least two of them, two budget meetings to go over things, I think. Why'd you do that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll get a Gantt chart, and, But no, then I think we move back, figure out, but I think we have to have at least 2 meetings to start fine tuning. What are we going through? We're gonna probably have to meet with Rod, have him come in and present, with us, look at park boards, look at, thank you, public works, that's what I was looking for. I'm thinking at least 2. But, okay.
So you're thinking about looking at CIPs in workshops?
Yeah, so, I think, we need to get ahead of it. I wouldn't even mind having this all wrapped up by the last meeting in November. I mean, we don't have to
Make me
be last
happy.
minute.
No, I don't want it to be
Always,
last
I don't
minute.
like the
I
last
hate
minute.
last minute.
So sooner than later, maybe we'll look to you to kind of put together a little timeline
Okay.
on what would be appropriate. Okay. Anything else? All right, we are adjourned.